Coach Brown and his staff a lot of credit. These guys have really played some quality ball. Their losses have been close games. They've obviously won some big games. They've played extremely well. And winning several of them by pretty wide margins. Beat a good Kansas State team there pretty well, as well as TCU here in the last few weeks. So a really good football team, obviously playing well on both sides of the ball. Defense has been a strength for them all year. Offensively, they're moving the ball well. Quarterback's playing well, been able to run it and throw it both. So, give them a lot of credit, doing a great job. It's always, tough going to Morgantown and trying to come out of there with the win. Well, we know that from obviously past experience. So excited for the week. Excited, again, with the momentum of our team and some of the things that I think we're improving on. Still, go back and watch the film with the team, and a lot of positive, obviously, to build on after the win against Oklahoma State. But still, just still too many errors. Still a whole lot that's got to get better and got to get better quick, because everybody doesn't stay the same here at the end, and so we're going to have to do much better. So hopefully we can get that done this week, clean up a lot of things we need to clean up, and get ready to go play a really good football team.
Okay, we'll get to questions here. We'll start with Jason Kersey from The Athletic and then go to Ryan Aber.
Lincoln, you talked there about needing to improve a lot of things, and I think after a game like you guys had the other day, what are you looking at that still needs to be better in your mind? Where are you guys still lacking?
Oh, man. Penalties, number one. I thought some things from a defensive execution standpoint, we missed a couple just, easy, simple fits that are day one stuff for us that shouldn't be happening this late. Offensively, we really had about an entire quarter of the game that we were just poor, kind of across the board. Missed some things in the run game, missed some things in certainly in the throw game, just kind of musical chairs as far as, errors across the board. Had a couple errors as well in special teams. We're lucky that, didn't get exposed on. So just, the notion after a game like that is everybody thinks, everything's perfect and this and that, and it's certainly far from perfect. So I get there was a lot of good. I'm not discounting that, but the flip side of it is you put on the good play tape and the bad play tape, and the good play stuff's exciting and it's really, really good. And the bad play tape is poor, and there's way too much of it. And so we got our work cut out for us to try to clean that up.
Thanks, Lincoln.
Mm-hmm. Ryan Aber of the Oklahoman, and then Eric Bailey.
Yeah, Lincoln, when you look back a couple years ago when you were making the defensive coordinator hire, how much did Alex's success at Washington State specifically with building a defense with that kind of offense on the other side play into at least the initial consideration of him? And just what are some of the challenges of building a good defense when you play offense the way that y'all do?
Schematically it didn't figure in much, just because we're so different than what Washington State was doing. I think there's challenges in both. The challenges, if you're, defensive coordinator, for Mike, obviously the great thing is you get to see all kinds of every pass thing known to man. The negative is you never get to defend a run play, which is kind of important. And so, the scheme wasn't a big deal to me, but I know how Mike runs it, and Mike gives a lot of latitude to the defensive coordinator to really take over and really not just be a play caller, but to be someone that has a big hand in the culture. So I knowing, kind of what I said all along with you guys, that I thought the most important change for us was from a culture standpoint. That was the first thing that struck me. And then the second thing was, I appreciated, what he did schematically. And, we had good talks about that. And I think we were, what I was hoping for our defense at Oklahoma to become schematically, and then what he already did and what he believed in, whether it's Oklahoma or anywhere else, fit so much. And so it just, like I said, it was honestly one of the easier hires that I've had to make.
Appreciate it, Lincoln.
Okay, let's go to Eric Bailey of the Tulsa World, and then Joe Bettner.
Lincoln, when we discuss how well your football team has started games, a lot of times the offense gets emphasized. But what about the way the defense has started football games? They've only allowed 17 first-quarter points in 8 games. How much does that really set the tone for a game with the way the defense starts?
Oh, it absolutely does. I mean, just the energy those guys have been playing with, and a lot of times in a game, you're getting some of the best shots maybe that an offense may have, or seeing new things, and for us to go in there and play as well as we have and be able to control people early in games has been huge for momentum. And we've been able to separate a lot in those early quarters because of the team and because of everybody doing it. But we have. And I give our guys a lot of credit. They've come out, and it's not just emotion. I mean, everybody thinks when you play early, well early in a game, it's I'm fired up, or this or that. And yeah, that's part of it. But I mean, this is pretty high level college football. I mean, most people are pretty fired up to play games. So this comes down to being able to execute early on, and we've done that at a high level so far. But obviously, we have a big challenge here this week against this group.
Thank you, Lincoln.
Joe Bettner, Norman Transcript, and then Bob Prisbillo.
Speaking on the strength of the West Virginia defense, I'm curious just how big of a challenge they pose to you guys as far as statistically the best defense in the Big 12. What do they do so well, and what does your offense got to do to, I guess, combat that?
Well, they do a lot of things well. I mean, their D line's very good. Without a doubt, one of the top D lines that we've played. I mean, no question about it. So, some really talented, good players up there. The scheme's good. They're good on the back end. I mean, a lot of similarities to last week, in that there's just not a ton of weaknesses. You don't turn on the film and say, well, they're really good at this, but they're really bad at that. I mean, there's not really anything they're really bad at. And so, and then they've been able to make a lot of big plays. They've been able to get pressure on the quarterback without, just having to load up and just blitz everybody to get it done. They're good in the back end. They've done a really nice job schematically. So, I mean, every part of them is challenging.
Okay, let's go to Bob Prisbillo with Sooner Scoop, and then John Hoover.
Yeah, Lincoln, I remember the summer camp where DJ Graham was there and he got the offer. He had just played at receiver the entire time, but offered in the secondary. How tough was it to convince him to go to defense, and how pleased are you with the way that he's played, especially in the last couple of weeks?
We knew we liked DJ as an athlete, and we knew at the time that either way it played out, that we thought he was going to have a chance to come help our program and help our team. And I don't know that it was ever convincing. I just think we continually had talks with DJ and his family as the recruitment process went on, and even after he decided to come to OU, we continued to have those talks. And I think it was centered around, we thought he had a good skill set for both, but it was centered around also too where we thought maybe he had a chance to make an impact the quickest. And kind of started to lock into the DB as we kind of got to the end of the recruitment process. And then as he's gotten here and improved, I think I certainly would believe that's going to be his future. And so he's doing some good things. He's playing well, getting more confident in schemes. He's very talented, and you see some of that talent start to show up on the field because of just, again, I think the confidence, being able to stay on the field, stay on the practice field, improving. And then he's winning. He's played aggressive in games. I mean, he's made some good plays on the ball. He's had some really physical tackles. He's done a nice job for us so far, and certainly a kid that has a chance to be a really good player.
John Hoover, SI Sooners, and then Chandler Engelbrecht.
Hey, Lincoln, a follow-up for you on West Virginia's defense. If you think back to the summer This is a team that had to replace their defensive coordinator right before the season. They're in a pandemic, obviously, like everybody else. I think they had to shut it down for a little while. All that going into it, how do you think they've been able to keep it together defensive-wise with the new coordinators, new scheme, whatever it is? And what challenges? How do you what do you need to do to maybe overcome some of the challenges that they present?
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to give their staff a lot of credit. Obviously, Coach Brown at the head of that, and then the two new coordinators that have taken over. Obviously, with the rest of the defensive staff, done a fabulous job. I mean, they really have. And then you've got to imagine. Again, I've been in there with them, but you got to imagine their kids have done a really good job too of buying into these new guys, and they've had some really good experienced players coming back that are playing well for them. So they've. Looks like they hadn't used it as a crutch. Looks like they've continued to just battle through it. So, again, a lot of respect, a lot of credit. Yeah, I think a lot like last week. I mean, I think it's going to come down to really good execution. I mean, they've got good players and a good scheme. We feel like we have the same thing, and so not going to be a lot of gifts out there. Going to have to try to control their front because they certainly are very disruptive. And again, it's just going to be a game of high execution. I mean, that's what it is when a good group goes against a good group. So it'll be a fun challenge.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Chandler Engelbrecht, OU Daily, and then James Hale.
Hey, Coach. I just had a quick question about team morale. As if playing through a global pandemic wasn't hard enough, now you guys are going to be playing through practice this week as a holiday's going on and a lot of people are back home with their families. So I'm just curious, what's your message of togetherness into your team this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're a little used to it right by now that, we can't live our normal lives. And I know that nobody can in this pandemic, or maybe some still are. But ours in some ways is a little bit different, for our guys. They're not like the average college kid that is out, living just like normal, like it appears most are. So I think our guys have gotten used to that. Yeah, is it hard not going home or being able to do the things you want to for Thanksgiving, going to a staff member's home, all that? It is, but at the same time, we're also pretty used to playing right around here. So normally they have just an afternoon off and, we're back at it ready to, travel and go play the very next day anyway. So I don't know that a ton. I do think just the message though from the team with just there is a, despite all the tough things, our team and just people in general have gone through this year, that we all can't forget how much that we still have to be thankful for. And one thing we're thankful for is being able to play this game, and that these games haven't gotten taken away from us, and we've been able to all do what we love, even though it's been a little bit different. So we're trying to, approach it that way and not just be the poor me, poor us, pandemic, blah, blah, blah. It's there's life's still pretty good, and we're getting to play football and coach football, which is pretty good.
Okay, James Hale, KREF, and then Barry Trammell.
Lincoln, you said in the post game that every week you're trying to get a gauge whether or not you can play or not or whatever. Yet, you guys were out 4 or 5 key players, and yet you still wanted to play the game and did play the game very well. Mike Leach even told him that he would play with less, and I know you and Mike are real close. He didn't have 43 guys available, but he still played against Georgia. The effort by your team to always try to play and you wanting to play, I think, is commendable. And you got to be pretty happy with your guys no matter what they face. They want to go play the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a little bit how we're wired. I mean, if we feel like we can play and play safely, we're going to play. I just think decisions like that are – I would say decisions like that are bigger than just 1 year. A couple of those early games this year, we could have not played.
Yep.
And you could maybe come back at the end of this year and say, well, you know what, maybe a result of one of those games would have been different had we not done it. But I just think the message that sends to your team is just – and this, here at OU have nothing to do with me, but all the great players and coaches here in the past. I mean, this has been about competitiveness and edge and toughness. And I don't know. I think if you can play and all of a sudden you pull it, I just don't know that you're really embracing kind of what this place has always been about and what's made this program special for years and years and years. So, and I'm not saying, I mean, who knows? I'm not saying we won't get to a point where it's not safe for us to play games here. I don't know. We have been close, but if we feel like we can play and play safely, then we're going to play. And that's just, we decided it was going to be like that from the beginning, and we were going to ride with it no matter what. And we have done that.
Thanks, Lincoln.
Barry Trammell, the Oklahoman, and then Garen Emig.
Yeah, Lincoln, all these years when you're replacing a great quarterback and we're doing an offense, you always say, well, we expect to be as good as ever. We didn't really talk about it this offseason. We were too busy talking about the coronavirus. But I would assume you would have said the same thing. You're playing much better this last month. How close is this offense to being sort of the Oklahoma standard that you guys have set?
Oh, I mean, I think we're close. Yeah, we're close. And we've had some moments this year where we've been, really, really good. And at times this year and more times here as of late, we've done some things even better than those groups have done in the past. So, but we're close. This one again is just so tough to gauge because I've just never coached in a year, nor have anybody else. I'm obviously not just central to us, but I've never coached in a year where we've had this many different lineups. I mean, it's every week, every day, something's different. And so, if you put those same groups in this situation, in this pandemic, all that's gone on, how does it look? I don't know. I mean, I think, but I do think we're getting to the point where we can be pretty explosive and we can do some things well. But we still have times where our execution is not where it needs to be. And, that's kind of, I think kind of the final part of this. I mean, that's the key to putting this all together and playing the way we're capable of for more extended periods of time. And that's, here at the end, that's what we're going to have to do.
What are those, you say some things doing better than past groups? What are you doing better than you've ever done?
Oh, there's some things, I think some small things schematically. I don't think maybe any just big picture stuff. But we've had just some areas of our game that are, whether it's just kind of just progression year in and year out. Sometimes it's some small schematic things that maybe we're doing better than we've done in the past. So I feel like we've got some strengths that maybe necessarily the groups before didn't have as much. So, I mean, I realize those are some pretty good groups, but there's things I can point to as I go watch us schematically and say, hey, you know what? We run this route better than we used to. We throw this ball better than we used to. We run this run play better than we used to. I mean, there's starting to be more of that. We're like, that we're starting to do some things that aren't easy to do. We're starting to do pretty well and do it more often, which is exciting. So, yeah, no, I'm excited about the group. I mean, I think we got a chance to close really well.
Okay, Garen Emig, Tulsa World, and then Dean Blevins.
Lincoln, you have Ramondre and Ronnie Perkins both back and both impacting, which is great for them and great for you. Trajan is still sort of in purgatory with regard to his deal. Now that the other two are back, is your job and Dennis's job in terms of keeping him engaged and keeping him positive through everything he's going through? Is it more difficult when the other two are not just able to play, but really helping you out?
Yeah, I mean, it is. And I hate to keep making it a story just because, I mean, these kids have been drugged through enough, in my opinion. But I mean, it's hard for any player, when you're out, whether it's an injury or, or something else. I mean, it's just, these guys love the game so much, and they majority of the guys in here have a strong passion for playing, and when it's taken away from them, it is difficult. So it's obviously it'd be a lot easier if I could sit here and walk you guys and everybody through the I gotta watch my words here, but just what this entire process has looked like, and I will one day though, and. So we're, Trajan's got to hang in there. He's going to be a really, really good football player. He's had some tough breaks not go his way. He's got to hang in there. And of course, that's absolutely our job to bring him along, because the light is, we're getting to you got to see the light at the end of the tunnel. So we just got to just hang on all the way through and then get back on track.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go to Brandon Drum, OU Insider, and then Keegan Renault. I'm sorry, I skipped Dean, didn't I?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dean, then we'll go to Brandon Drum.
Okay. Hey, Lincoln, want to get your thoughts on these unsportsmanlike penalties or celebration or whatever they're called. They're killing you at times, as you well know. As a head coach, and a lot of them are on defense. Buki and Perkins the other night, it appeared had several that maybe if you're on the road they're called, but very, very close. As a head coach, what can you do? What are you doing to make sure that you're just not going to be losing a game because of that?
There's a balance. You go in there and play non-aggressive and soft and with no attitude, you're going to get your brains beat in. So you have to play that way, but there's a fine line. And we address them like we do, any other mistake in the game. I mean, it's, getting a 15-yard penalty is no different than, dropping a touchdown pass, missing a blitz, busting a coverage. I mean, it's you're either doing stuff to help the team or you're doing stuff to not. And so there's nothing that a player does, or a coach for that matter, in a football game that's not graded. And the very simplest form of it is, did this help us win or did this hurt us? And if it helped us, we're going to point it out in a positive way. If it hurt us, then we are going to point it out in a negative way, and we're going to correct it. And so any mistake that we ever make on the field is always going to be looked at. There's nowhere to hide for our guys, and we're very transparent on what they do well, what they don't, and we're very transparent on what we as coaches do well and what we don't. And our deal here is every person's got to own. Everybody wants to own the things they do well. You're going to own the things you don't do well too. Every person in this program, and there's nobody that's exempt from that.
Thanks, Coach.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, time for two more. Brandon Drum, OU Insider, and then Keegan Renault.
Hey, Lincoln.
I will say, real quick too, I will say this on that last question, because I know a lot's been made of it, and I think I said this other day, and I don't think it got written about any. I know Buki's taken some grief, and there's no question things he's got to do better. I would also say too, and hopefully you guys will choose to write this as well. I don't know that we have a bigger team player on this team than that guy. I mean, that guy is the most for his teammates, staying late with young guys, most energetic, helping coach up young guys. I mean, just he brings more to this than what the people on the outside realize. So while there's absolutely things he's got to correct and do better, I love having that kid here. He makes us better all the time, and we will be a worse program the day that he's not here.
All right, thanks, Coach. Brandon?
Yeah, Lincoln, a couple of those pass interferences, and this is just conference-wide, it seems like it's more ticky-tacky than it is in most other conferences when you watch. How much does that, I don't want to say affect a mindset of a defensive back when they're trying to play the way they're taught, physical, man-to-man, and they get called for something that seems so pedestrian at times? Does that, and then when you go into bowl games or play out of conference, does that affect you guys any?
I mean, I think it's just part of the nature of playing aggressive. And I think, I think it's two things for our guys. One, we've got to understand and adapt to how things are being called. Continue to play smarter, find that line of aggressiveness, but also play smarter. And then I think the second part of it is, if a flag does come, we got to play through it, and we can't let it take away from who we are and our aggressiveness and our mentality. And we got to understand that. And I thought Trey Brown was a great example of that the other night. He had a couple there in the first half that were, close. I mean, they were tough calls that didn't go his way. And he came out in the second half and played his tail off, and really did the rest of the game too. So that showed, some really good maturity in how he handled it. Yeah, and it's tough. I mean, I get it. It's a tough call for officials. It's such a, it's kind of a tough, when you get guys going back and forth, it's such a fine line. And I know Greg Burks, our head of officials, his message to our officials has been, they got to be 100%. They would rather, miss one than throw one that actually didn't happen. And so they're working to get better just like we are. You got to play through it. I mean, that's ball. And, but we're not going to let anything take away our aggressiveness and the way we want to play in the secondary.
Okay. Final question today from Keegan Renault, Sooners Wire.
Lincoln, every game with West Virginia so far has been the upper 60s, 80s. One went over 100. Obviously, in terms of total points, and obviously that probably is not going to be the case this weekend. And just this conference in general, I know you've been asked about this a lot, but it seems like the narrative nationally has really stopped in terms of the Big 12 defenses. Do you sense that? And in terms of just the defenses in the Big 12, can you attribute that to anything, whether it's better players, better coaching, whatever it may be?
And it's a big picture question. I mean, the answers, I don't know that there's one answer for it. I mean, but you have to say what the defenses across the league have done this year, especially considering that I think us and Kansas were the only people that didn't return a starting quarterback. I think that's right. And so, especially considering that, you got to say it's impressive. I mean, it is. Things I've seen, I mean, I don't think really anybody's just bad on defense in the league right now. It's kind of like what we said about offenses for years. I mean, I think there's a lot of very good defenses, and even the ones that are maybe not in the top half of the league are still very solid. And there's a lot of good players. There's a lot of good young defensive players in this league right now. A lot of good defensive front players in this league right now. So, yeah, I mean, it's, and then some of it too may be just, there's been a little bit of coaching turnover in this league over the last couple of years for sure. And sometimes it takes an offense a little bit of time to get going as well. Been some new defensive schemes come in. So I don't know. The answer is probably somewhere in there in all the middle of that, but no doubt it's been an impressive year for the league defensively. I mean, there's a lot of really quality defenses, and I wouldn't disagree if you said maybe more than in some years past.
Thanks, Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.